Hey there, Midnight Phoenix. How are you doing, buddy?
I am doing great. Happy to be here, Elliot. It's good to see or hear from you, I guess, again. Um, Coming off the back of what was that, the 15th now?
Yeah.
Pretty good tournament, I think. I can only wanted to kind of go over like how the event went down, especially here in the finals. I know it was kind of a crazy match, but we'll get into it obviously as it kind of goes down.
Yeah. It was an incredible match. Absolutely. I really enjoyed watching it for sure. I I've seen you play a couple times, so can I ask a couple questions before we start?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Please throw them
so
at me.
what area are you from?
So I actually am from the Woodbridge, Virginia area.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of the superstar players who have seen me once or twice kind of know this, but it's definitely a hike up into that area. It's about an 80-mile one-way
Mm-hmm.
drive. So, coming up to the superstar tournament, it's always one of those things where, I'm trying to go out there and obviously, compete at the best of my ability. It ended up going really well for me this time, which is I don't want to say a change from the norm. Like you said, we've ended up in rounds a few times ourselves, obviously, and I think they've gone my way most of the time. But I feel like it's been a lot of luck, if I'm being honest, when it comes down to those matches. Um, but yeah, no. So like I said, I'm from the Woodbridge area. Just traditionally, I'm playing out in that Northern Virginia kind of DMV space.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I said, I try and make the trip out to Superstar if I'm ever wanting to like really test how far like I'm getting in terms of my own like practice and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it's super interesting to have the perspective of someone who comes from not our local area. So that's a big reason why I wanted to have you on. Um, so here we've got your deck. My first
Yeah.
question when I saw this was, where is Aero Pegasus? Because I know you got that.
Yes, I do have an Aero Pegasus. Aero Pegasus was used earlier in the tournament on 760 level. Um, just in my experience on the day, for whatever reason, I just couldn't seem to get it to connect in the ways that I wanted it to.
Hmm.
Um, and so I ended up just kind of swapping it out into a safer option in round three, I believe it was, of Swiss. Switching over to the Wizard Rod 960 Freeball. That's what replaced Aero Pegasus in the deck at that point in the tournament. Um, an Arrow is like I usually just prefer a more aggressive style setup. I know just because Superstar does have its players usually, in my experience, on more of a defensive and
Yeah.
stamina, based meta, and I feel like that probably comes from. I know Superstar was really big in the burst era as
Yeah.
well, and so I feel like maybe that's where that's translating from.
Hmm.
So it's just a meta call usually going into Swiss, but like I said, I just couldn't seem to get it to work for the day, and so I kind of, uh, made the judgment call at that point, right around round three of Swiss, to try and switch over to more of a safer bet. Um, Obviously, Rod's not the same free point that it used to be, with the meta shifting as we get closer to like CX and that kind of stuff. But it's definitely one of those things where it felt like it was a more consistent choice, and I think that's kind of what helped out going from round three onwards into the tournament. We'll kind of see that later, and I'm sure the videos here.
Yeah, and I'll ask you more about the combos as we see them launched. I guess the first one that was interesting to me was because I'm still learning. You're on what I would consider the bad side, on the X side with Phoenix, and here I usually don't tilt forward. Why? Oh, explain to me your strategy here, launching into I believe it was Nightmare.
Yeah, so I'm going into a night mail on this matchup, which is obviously a really popular and a very competitive bay. Um, my experience with Phoenix and just my practice in launching it from this side of the stadium, I, for whatever reason, and I wish I could explain the technicality and how I was able to do it, am able to get a pretty decent drop shot with this about like 30-ish degree angle, I would call it. Um, and it just kind of like it gets me a good rotation. We're usually right around the center, but past the X line itself. Now, unfortunately, he catches me right off the bat, which is what sends me into that pocket there. Um, But the idea is for this Phoenix to kind of come up to about what I would say is, 2/3 up the stadium towards the top of the bowl,
Yeah.
and then usually it'll drop back down and start X dashing.
Yeah.
Like I said, he just had positioning locked on, um, and so that did not end up going my way this time. Now, granted, part choice, as I'm sure everyone saw there, I was really happy with it, obviously, in the moment.
Yeah.
Managed to get Phoenix to come back out of the pocket. In the exact moment it happened, I was really more expecting, just to save the point.
Hmm.
But what ended up happening was a double KO, basically right back into setting Nightmare right back into the pocket, which was just fantastic for myself. But I mean, obviously, very unfortunate for Deceased Crab, I believe his
So
username
this
was.
is Dragreus, but I was really glad we caught that
Okay,
reaction.
sorry.
Yeah, it was a great reaction, and that's a really great shot to start off the battle. Uh,
Yeah, no, it was incredibly. It hyped up the entire. I think everyone, like you can see, Crisis is back there, and I know a lot of folks. But that clip itself was just very. It shows a lot of what X is, as a game.
yeah, yeah. It's very fast and impactful, and anything can happen, and comebacks are possible.
Yeah, it's certainly one of those things where never count yourself out until it stops spinning.
Yeah, that's good advice. All right. Here we've got Goon Mirror, which I think is going to be something we see a lot going forward. Maybe you're on the good side for Goon. What are your thoughts here launching into the Dragoon Mirror?
So I will be honest with you. I don't traditionally use Cobalt Dragoon. I've found it to be very burst prone in my own experience. So this was again something I chose specifically, knowing that Superstar is
Yeah.
a more competitive environment than my general hometown. And so because of that, I'm on a pretty heavy tilt just to kind of avoid any, ratchet snipes or bit bursts immediately going into it. And yeah, as you said, I ended up actually running into the Dragoon Mirror a number of times throughout this event. Some of them went my way, some of them didn't. I will be honest with you, I don't remember offhand where this ended up going. Um, but
It
yeah, no,
almost
I
went
just
straight out.
yeah. Again, it's the reverse of what it was in the previous, where it's sometimes the luck is going to go one way, sometimes it's going to go the other. But ultimately, I found that my positioning with Dragoon throughout the event was fairly good in the mirror. I was usually looking to just aim straight to the center. Um, and then let the just rotational force kind of take Dragoon where I wanted it to. Now, unfortunately, it can do exactly what you just saw there, where sometimes it almost KOs itself. And again, that's just a matter of I'm just not as experienced using Dragoon on Elevate, so it's not something I've practiced as much, and really is something I probably should get a bit better at. And I think that just difference in experience just kind of shows there at the end where his ends up taking it ultimately, despite that like early contact.
Yeah, interesting. His launch is a little more flat.
Yeah, and I think that definitely plays a factor into it as well. I'm definitely scraping a bit more,
Mm,
and I think we're both on 560 elevate in this case.
I believe
So
so. So yeah, it comes down right down to the stamina finish.
yeah, and like I said, that's just a matter of contact, launch power, that kind of stuff. And I think ultimately the experience he has with probably using that combo is just something that crept mine out, and that's just how that crumbles sometimes.
I feel like I can explain what happens here, and I think Dragreus is too flat. Like when he lands, his layer is really flat, and it just goes around in the circle.
Yeah. And it definitely like it caught it off in an awkward way where Draganus, I believe, is on just standard ball in this
Yeah,
round. And his movement it threw me off so badly right at the start of this. To a point where for the rest of the rounds, and I don't know how evident it'll be during like deck shuffles and that kind of stuff, I'm trying to avoid ending up in that mirror match again almost desperately. That's how you see me asking about like what is it
yeah.
on, because for a second it just didn't seem like it was on ball just given the movement pattern.
No, yeah, it was weird for sure.
So, um, I believe that at this point we've deck shuffled once. Like the username suggests, Midnight Phoenix has kind of always been this like ace in the hole for me.
Hmm.
So, looking to close out the round, I ended up running that to start. I think he ended up going into Dragoon on Elevate, which generally is a matchup in my experience that will favor Dragoon. So I believe if I recall here, I just hard launch as hard, like almost as difficult as possible, with a slight tilt, obviously aiming for like a ratchet, burst, that kind of thing. And I just kind of get lucky with the way the contacts go and end up extreme finishing him. I'm honestly very happy in the moment. There's no denying it. Especially with this being, I believe it's the first time I've ever made top cut at Superstar. So finding myself in finals was something that was one unexpected and two just kind of exhilarating. It's a lot of obviously it's fun to play, but it's also fun to win, and I don't think there's any denying that.
No, no, not at all. Let's see.
um
What are your thoughts going into
yeah,
this battle?
so this is, I believe, the second bout at this point. I think I've taken the first match here. So, going into this, I did change up my deck order, obviously in an effort to try and keep my Wizard Rod away from his after what had happened in the previous round. Um, and unfortunately, the way his deck is ordered in this round, I believe he just kind of clean sweeps it. Where obviously I'm running up into Dragoon, which
Yeah.
is never a matchup that's favored for Rod. Um, and I do believe, if I recall correctly, there was midair contact that happened. And I can't recall if we actually reviewed it or not in this instance.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and it's one of those things where obviously that's one of the biggest, I think, advantages of something like going to Superstar, where we have judges available to make sure that things are reviewed, and that we're actually making sure that the competition aspect of it is held like in a higher regard, I think, than some other locations in the area. Um,
Yeah, I really appreciate that perspective. Um,
so
so we try it again here, but so it's interesting that you were more afraid of his wizard rod than his dragoon.
ultimately, I think it just comes down to I'm not ever thinking that Dragoon, at least in my experience, it's usually going to come down to the spin
Hmm.
finish, especially with me being on 960. Here, I'm not too worried about getting, bursted or, bit bursted or anything like that. That's honestly also like just kind of speaking into some of the combo stuff. That's why I ended up on free ball. My previous experience with trying to use Wizard Rod competitively on
Hmm.
ball, I found um, burst just more frequently than my copy of free ball happened to.
Mm.
Um, and so that's kind of why that call was made. And so I wasn't as worried about things like Dragoon necessarily bursting the rod itself. So I know ultimately, like, it's one of those things where it's either I'm going to take the point via stamina or I'm going to lose a point via stamina. So it's never going to put me too deep in a hole if it doesn't go my way, which is how this match starts out. I think we end up on the Phoenix versus
Yep.
Male again, I want to
Hmm.
say, which I know you and I had talked about this a little after the event itself, where it's definitely a combo and a matchup that I think depending on your choice of like mold of Phoenix and if you're on rush or low rush, the outcome I think varies pretty drastically. Where I think I get another beat 'em up win with the Phoenix here.
Hmm.
Um, Nightmail just not able to kind of find its pathing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, kind of an unexpected play of events from my perspective. Thinking about the launch here, I would have thought before these two went in that Nightmail was better into AVA than Mold 3 Phoenix was.
yeah, and I have to say, Nightmail is an excellent bay. One of my teammates and friends who was at the event ended up switching over to Nightmail, I believe, in round three as well. Just seeing the success that a lot of players were having with it during the
Mm.
event. Um, and so again, I think this just comes down to I've found myself on the wrong side of the coin flip a lot of the time. So playing from this side of the stadium and just launching Phoenix in a way that I'm comfortable with, I think is kind of what helped me just come out on top of that matchup, despite the way the Bays usually find themselves going in that situation.
Interesting. So you've got your heavy Dragoon elevate here. Nice forward tilt launch into the bowl. So usually you launch into the bowl and you don't worry about trying to land on the outside, right?
Generally speaking, at least launching from this side of the stadium, that is my general go-to. I'm just looking to try and play it safe. And again, like I said, Dragoon is something I'm less experienced in using, so I'm looking usually with the Dragoon, and this came kind of just as the event went on. I found just launching towards center of the bowl, trying to maintain. I guess area control is the best way I can
Yeah.
describe it. Tended to work out pretty well for me. Which was, certainly not what I would have done, say, 3 weeks ago. I think the last event I was at, and it's just one of those things where it was something that was more dictated by the way the event played out, more so than practice had given me. So,
Yeah, that's fascinating.
in this Yeah, I think in this case, it's Dragoon into Phoenix, which, as I said kind of previously, is definitely a matchup that, in my experience, will favor Dragoon at this point,
Hmm.
and I think it just comes down to a spin finish here, which is, not that surprising. Obviously, I was a little disappointed, hoping the Ace could take it to just sweep the round, but it is what it is. I think at this point we just kind of move on to, I think it's the is it, I think it's a Rod. Oh no, it's Dragoon versus Rod.
Yeah, another forward tilt. So what happens? What does
Yeah,
Joel do differently here? So is he flat in the middle of the bowl again? Yeah, he did that same thing where he's like flat in the middle of the bowl and he turns his rod into an attack
yeah,
type.
yeah, and it just catches Dragoon right at the perfect time, and just no getting out of the pocket at that point. Um, yeah, and I think what is it, round three here? If I recall correctly, I made a decision in this round. I think to place Phoenix last, um, kind of just hoping to score a couple early points, I believe, with Dragoon and Rod, and then hope to kind of KO with Phoenix. That was kind of the plan going into this like third set here, if I recall correctly. Oh no, I have it first still, so it's after the shuffle.
It's after the mid match shuffle. So it looks like we've got Phoenix and then Rod.
Rod, yep. And so just kind of a slight tilt, looking to either get the snipe or just get that reverse X dash. And unfortunately just doesn't make contact in the way we need to in the early game. And of course, I think as most players know at this point, there's really not much that's going to happen outside of Rod just getting the outspin 9 times out of 10. Um, and so, obviously, Joel gets an early lead here, which is fine.
That Phoenix lasts way longer than I'm expecting it to on mold 3 and Rush. How hard are you pulling, boss?
Uh, I mean, going into this, I will say I don't know if it's caught on camera. I do actually break my ripcord during this match. The teeth, in fact, are on that thing shredded at this point. I was really kind of giving it my the whole like anime attempt at you know let's show you the unseen, and it just did not happen. But no, yeah, I'm giving it a serious launch for sure. And then past that, this was something that I would say throughout the event was it was not this match, but I believe it was the top four round I was in. That thing just stayed up for an ungodly amount of time. Which was, again, this was something that I made as a just a call going into the event itself. The last time I was over at Superstar, I did in fact I had the same build. I just had it on low rush, and I was finding that the way Phoenix Mold 3 interacts with Rush and Low Rush
Mm-hmm.
differently is that while Low Rush definitely gives it those more powerful hits, its stamina, in my
Yeah.
experience, is very degraded. And so I made the choice in this event to switch back over. to rush on just regular rush, and that did seem to give it the extra stamina. In most of the rounds that I was finding it, helping get something like that sleep out earlier in the round against Nightmail. And just quickly like going over like the clip that just happened. Obviously, another Dragoon mirror again, going on the experience kind of being the thing to take it. And so obviously, like I said, Joel's just up in this round right now. He gets a good early lead to start.
Yeah, looking at the Dragoon match, he's got the good side of the stadium for Dragoon. Yeah, that could have been really nasty. And then it just comes down to us. It comes down to the goons just circling each other. It's so unwatchable that I hit it with the 2 times because it's just they barely
Yeah, it,
touch.
it definitely was. No, yeah, and they definitely just played a game of duck, duck, goose for the entire round of just circling the stadium and circling one another, and eventually it just came down to again, I kind of landed on the experience factor as just I'm less skilled with dragoons certainly than some of the other bladers here at this event, just from a lack of usage. So, like I said, it is what it is. Going into the round here, 2-0. I think we have Rod versus Male, which is definitely a scarier matchup from my perspective. Just because Male is something that, like I said, doesn't get a ton of use down here in the Virginia area. I'm not sure if it's like a cost factor or what. It just is kind of slept on. And so I thankfully just get a really nice start to the round, getting Rod up into the corner and just kind of dodging Male for most of the early game, and it just kind of plays out like you would, like I would say most matches are going to play with Rod that hit the late game like that, where it just gets I believe, just the outspin, if I recall correctly. And Male, I think, nearly KOs itself 3 times.
Yeah, Mail
So
Mail almost flies out there. Interesting. So he switches up to his winder launcher, and previously he'd been using his string to launch Mail. But I'm not sure how I feel
I'm gonna
about
be
that
honest.
launch. The forward, just the raw forward tilt and ending up here, I don't think that sets you up into a good pattern.
No, especially when Rod, like up against Rod specifically, I think it's significantly worse just because it does get that dodge when launched correctly. Um, I think what's funny about it is it's almost an imitation of what I've been doing with Phoenix from that side of the stadium up into this point of the event.
Right. He just
Um,
does it differently. He's also is this the first time he's picked up the winder launcher in the game? I don't think he's
it very well might be. Like I
oh
said,
wait, he used it
I
here.
hadn't noticed it previously.
He uses it here. Yeah, he uses it to but this he's using it to launch Rod, but this is the first time he launches
Sure,
Mail with it. So I think it's a matter of his lack of experience with the winder launcher.
quite possibly. I think in this event, I used specifically just the winder launcher and the left string.
Yeah.
I in previous events have tried using the string launcher to get more technical shots, drop shots, that kind of stuff. It just isn't something I have had a lot of success with. So
Yeah.
I was really just focused in on getting the power where I wanted it to be, and hoping that just the way that riding the rail and that kind of stuff would go would just get me where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And this was a really interesting match because quite literally, I believe, as of a week ago, this would have been a completely different result. But with obviously the changes to the WBO rules about burst priority and how that works, now we're looking at what finish method was initiated first. And thankfully, obviously this is a matchup that obviously will favor Dragoon. But I just get a really lucky placement where Dragoon just hangs up on that side of the stadium, and the recoil just sends Rod right into the overfinish pocket, with Dragoon self bursting off the rail itself afterwards.
So I will tell you that the reason the burst priority rule was applied was because 90% of the time it was applied incorrectly. And here would not be a time to apply burst priority. It happens so late. It happens so late. Like it's 90% of the time burst priority was applied. It was applied incorrectly. So now they just simplified the rules to what happens first. But even still here, so you
Yeah.
you you hit the extreme line and you get bisected when you do the what is it, draconic break where you go around twice. One,
I didn't
two.
actually catch
There
it.
you
So,
go.
it actually does go around twice. Yeah, that's very
Yeah,
funny.
so it's like burst priority where two things happening at the same time. Nah, nah. But it was hilarious to see. It was super cool. And like
Yeah.
that's kind of that's one of those cool outcomes. I mean, we should clip that one for sure.
Yeah, I remember that, and I think between that and the initial Nightmare versus Phoenix, I think those two are kind of my favorites. Um, and I believe at this point it's 2-3 that burst getting me
Hmm.
the upper hand, and we end up now with again the opposite end of things. Now it's my Wizard Ron versus his Dragoon. Um, so definitely not a situation where not the ideal situation I want to be in for sure. But I am hoping, obviously, that it plays out where if it does go Joel's way, that it is just the spin
Hmm.
finish. Of course, my Wizard Rod decides to do funny things on free ball and almost get itself extremed and KO'd.
Mm.
Um, right here at the start of the round, but ends up just finding itself, falling down into the center. And at this point, a lot of Dragoon's spin has just kind of been depleted. So now it's just, what's going to take at the equalization. And obviously, just because of those early hits, I think Wizard Rod drops the point here, which sends us to literally match point. No ways around
Hmm.
it. 3-3 on the score, one around apiece. Um, and this is where I was talking about. We're just leaving Phoenix back at the end of the deck, hopefully to close out anything.
How could you have lost? You put the Midnight Phoenix in the last part of the
And
deck.
that was kind of that was kind of the idea of thinking into it. Um, and so, thankfully, because of that, I end up with the matchup that has, at least in my experience, just been the favored end of
Yeah,
things with Phoenix into Mail
yeah.
again. And it just plays into mostly a beat 'em up match. There's a couple close calls for both of us here as we end up near the extreme line, both being on Rush. But ultimately, just the weight difference and just where impacts happened just ended up giving Phoenix the final spin finish again over Mail. And of course, being a little overexcited, I go for the Jackson Cross there, and got to show off the Phoenix itself. So yeah, I mean overall it was a wild event. Just because again, first time I had made it that far in the event, I was super excited and happy, obviously. And you can see my teammate Cameron back here. Not the gentleman in the cap, the
Oh
gentleman in front
man,
of him.
Cameron's
It's
reaction.
just it's just it's just yeah, I guess he's just amazed in the moment. Um, because
Oh.
again, like I said, I came up to this event with both myself and then my two teammates, Anthony and Cameron.
Hmm.
The three of us have kind of been the competitive end of things out here in Northern Virginia, and so we ended up kind of just linking all together with forming a team, who doesn't like imitating the anime into life kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no. So ended up, I'm captaining the team. We're named Team Excalibur. We do have obviously like our own videos and that kind of stuff coming down the pipeline with YouTube and whatnot. So I mean, maybe I'll shoot links, whatnot. We'll figure that all out. But
Yeah, where can we find you
yeah,
on YouTube?
ultimately, yeah, so on YouTube, it's just under Team Excalibur Beyblade. No videos up yet. We'll have some coming out towards the tail end of this month, going over like Curio Cavern, which is the other store that definitely we traditionally are playing at, had their major first like WBO event last month. So we have a video coming out on that. And then obviously ourselves, we were recording here at the Superstar event as well. So that will be another video kind of coming down the line.
Awesome. So Curio Cavern is in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, so they're located out of Springfield, Virginia.
Okay.
They're right in the mall there. They do their events on Sundays. So, I mean, hilariously enough, following the event here at Superstar, we ended up going right there the very next
Oh
day,
wow.
and we'll kind of see how that plays out in a future video. I don't want to give out too many spoilers, but it was nice to see everyone in Top Cut of the event.
Yeah. That's super awesome, and we'll have some links if people are interested in those things in the description. I wanted to thank you for taking the time to hang out with me and talk about Beyblades. I would talk to Beyblades about anyone who will sit down and listen to me. So I was really happy to have you on and hear some answers to your questions.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's one of those things where I'm always happy to talk about it, and we always want to see, the community grow. And so, getting a chance to sit down, talk, explain, matchup types, and kind of what's going into an event, where you can play.
Hmm.
I think that's one of the biggest things that I think just a lot of people maybe aren't aware of all of the time. And so, I mean, getting new faces out there and whatnot, I just want to see the community grow and thrive. You know how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're doing a great job of being a good community member and leader.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, thank you so much for having me on, Elliot, and I will look forward to seeing you guys at another event sometime in the near
Yeah, we'll
future.
see you soon.